Okay, so today's special guest is Danella, who's a mother and teacher who has worked closely with families in varying capacity throughout her journey. She recognises that we are profoundly shaped by our early experiences within our families, and that if we as parents, carers and teachers can open ourselves up to seeing the first 7 years in particular as a time of mutual learning and growth, where we find our way through with intuition and love, we can best serve our children and ourselves. So the reason I felt to invite Danella on tonight to record this podcast to share with you is because her awareness and perspective around parenting in this way is what I feel has been a big part in helping expand my own capacity for holding space for myself and the children that are in my care. I often refer to her as a wise elder in the community because it really feels like she holds wisdom that is sometimes missing in our modern society, and that is missing from not having access to a village and a community who have this wisdom to pass on. So I feel it really important for this space to be created for her insights to be able to be shared with the community. I will also be joined by Emily, who's a beautiful mother. She has a special interest in holistic and conscious parenting and questions a lot of the techniques that mainstream parenting uses, and she feels into what effects these have for children on a deeper level. She's always thinking about the wider implications and long-term effects of her behaviour, reactions and language, and she personally aligns with the aware parenting philosophy to utilise in her parenting and when she looks after other people's children as well. So in this podcast, we'll be having an informal chat around Danella's experience and the things she's learned through working with families, and in particular regarding the importance of connecting and navigating relationship. So I'm really excited to see where this discussion takes the three of us. It'll be a bit of an informal chat just to see what comes through in order to need to be discussed and explored to be shared with you.
Awesome. Thanks for having us, Mel. Yeah, exciting. I'm just going to go along for the journey and see what comes up during our discussion.
So, yeah, thanks to both of you. The first thing that came up for me, Mel, listening was, what was it? What were the takeaways for you? Like you were saying, and I'm sitting here thinking, am I now turning the tables because, we're online to chat and share my experience, but that's a moment for me. I think, so what were the real takeaways from you in the experiences that you had, with me that you said opened you up? Because that might be a really good point, because it's about, it's something that we've actually shared and experienced together, and it feels better than telling a story about what I've done, or if that makes sense.
Yeah, so maybe I can start with sharing. I actually worked with Danella a few years ago. Danella used to run a natural learning program at Collingwood Children's Farm, and I was lucky enough to share an experience of running a group alongside her, of having children of a little tribe of my own, to navigate and explore and be in public, exploring that space together and exploring relationship and the children experiencing independence, being there without their primary caregivers, and navigating relationship together and with the public and with myself. And I just found that through that experience, being able to reflect with you on things that had unfolded through the day and through the experience, having access to your perspective and the way you see what's playing out and what unfolds in the space is what allowed me to be able to access that perspective for myself as well. So the layers, it's like you could see layers that I wasn't yet able to see, and it opened me up to seeing the layers and the because it's so multidimensional what's happening in a moment.
Yeah.
For each of us individually as humans, but let alone when we're together in a group context, and what potentially can be happening for a child within a group context as well. You're navigating just life, the challenges of life, and the challenges of life as a young child. Yeah, I really found that valuable. But having the opportunity to open up to, you know, when you have experiences in your life that just expand your perspective and you see everything differently moving forward. That was one of those experiences.
So it's really good for me to hear, and I think it was like that for you because of the nature of how you are as a person. You know, it's like you were open and you were wanting to learn and you were wanting to see, and that experience that we're talking about, like I set that up. It was an idea I had. It was this little idea that, you know, I mean, I was a mother myself. My daughter at the time that I set it up was 7. I was really there were a lot of things that I wished were available that weren't. And I thought, why don't I just set something up in the community and see if anyone's interested and give this a go? And I literally made the whole thing up as I went along. People would say to me, so what are you doing? And I go, well, I'm going to go down there and make it up today. You know, and it was always, and it wasn't like the basic things like, you know, the children's safety and making sure that they have whatever they needed materially or physically or food-wise and all that sort of stuff. All those sorts of things were covered. And in terms of how do I do this experience that I want to create, it was families found me who were willing to trust me and had faith in what I was offering, which was just a day of organic learning, nature-based for children. And it was really through the faith that people had in me and their willingness to trust me and the relationships I got to experience over time that I just learnt with the children, with the families as I went along. And what I found was that all that the kids really needed was someone who would be the connection point for their day. They could come in. So what a lot of, you know, a lot of what's offered are long day care and childcare and places where you've got large numbers of children and small numbers of caregivers, and there's just no possibility of there being real connection made during the day because it's more like managing the numbers, managing the flock type of thing going on. So for me, what was important was learning to be present enough to be able to connect with the children and to be able to do that with the parents and sometimes grandparents or caregivers or whoever else came along on the day, just being able, learning. It took time for me to learn to hold a space where I could stay there present to connect with the children and not be thrown off balance or off kilter or overwhelmed if there was, you know, 10 other children and grandparents and 50,000 conversations going on around me. And the more that I held that space, the more people got to recognise that space and they would be respectful of it. You know, sometimes I'd have to have conversations with people. I'd say, look, would you mind, really don't want to offend, but when you come in, would you be able to maybe leave the pram here and maybe just step, you know, just give a little bit of guidance and a little bit of support. And in time, people would see the children come and they would come and every single child would have their own way of connecting with me. You know, some of them it would be very verbal and very, you know, they'd look at me and other kids would just come and they'd make physical contact, you know, and they'd just come and sidle up against me and from their whole body would be making connection with mine. And I just feel their presence. It was like, this is as much as I'm able to do right now is to be here and just really make contact with you. But you'd feel that the child was present, feel that they're available. And then, you know, I had the privilege of being able to do that with really young children for 15 years or something. And the work over time just deepened and deepened and my awareness grew and the conversations that I had with parents opened up. And by the end, the experience was called Learning Through Love. And I was really holding in a space in the community for families who recognised that what we have to do is become more able to love in the face of what life with children presents us. And the only way we're going to help them is to be a more loving parent, and it requires self-reflection. And it requires change. You know, it requires that the adults are willing to change. The adults are willing to look at themselves. The adults are willing to, you know, enter into maybe spaces that aren't that comfortable to normally enter into. And out of that, children just light up. The genius will stay on fire. They are phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And they can function phenomenally as a little tribe when they're held in that space as well. Super caring, super responsible, develop, you know, amazing skills for negotiation, for navigating their way through difficulties. But you need to have that present anchor and someone willing to hold the space for that sort of conversation and to just be patient with it as well. You know, it requires a lot of patience. Some pennies drop instantly and some take time. You know, just one little girl. Oh, go on, Emily. Were you going to say something?
It's just the image that you just created in my mind just then has really highlighted for me how important building that relationship really is, because I'm reflecting on my own daughter and the experience that she's had. So she's I don't know if I would label it as anything in particular. Like she hasn't, sometimes I feel like it's perhaps maybe separation anxiety. But she really needs to have that relationship and that connection with somebody to feel completely safe in a unfamiliar environment, and therefore to be able to learn and go outside of her comfort zone and to grow. And I tried taking her to kinder, and because there were so many kids in the class and she didn't get that one-on-one time with the teacher to really connect and to build that relationship, she didn't get anything out of it. And the whole thing just, it didn't work for her at all. I'm just reflecting on different situations where there's been a teacher there, like we've been to other classes, when there's a teacher there that will actually connect with her and hold that space, and she really comes to life and thrives and joins in. So yeah, I think just hearing
it's
you.
Such a beautiful example, Emily. I'm so with you. I'm so with you right now. I think, how old is she?
She's 4 now.
And is she doing any kinder or anything now, or was that?
No, she just didn't.
Sort of chose not to.
Yeah, she didn't get into it. We weren't getting anything out of it.
So the first thing I want to say to you is to trust yourself in this process, because I'm actually seeing more and more children who are just do not want to be part of structured learning environments.
Me too. Yep.
It is that what's on offer doesn't resonate with them from the word go.
Yep.
And it's a very delicate space because, like you said, there's that thing called sorry, I've got a thing on the screen. I've just got to. Oh no, it's gone. The first thing that I'd pick up is that you've said you don't want to call what's going on, but you mentioned separation anxiety. My own experience and take on that, and this is having worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of families of really young, 1,000 families of really young kids over time, is that the anxiety's in the parent. So people look at children and say, oh, they've got an anxiety about separating, and I say, how I see it and what I've experienced is it's an experience the child is having because the parent hasn't known how to teach them to separate. So if the parent doesn't know how to be present set the scene, reassure, doesn't feel 100% confident in where they're taking the child is picking up on all of that, and they're going to be the expression of it. And I had so many conversations with young mums that would come to me, and I'd say to them, you know, I'd find out that their child I was the first person outside the family that this child was spending time with. And I'd always have the conversation with the mum and say, how are you feeling about it? And 80% of the time there'd be tears, and all the feelings that the mums had going on inside about being able to separate would come to the surface. And I used to just encourage them I just say, look, it's, you know, life with a child is about learning to let go, and it starts really young, and your whole life you're learning to let go so they can have freedom. And in that space of letting go, I used to say, have you got a friend that can come down and be at the coffee shop? Have you got someone you can go home to? And really encourage the parents to take really good care of themselves emotionally so that they could come and be in the best space to let their kids go. So I'm not saying this to suggest that you didn't do it or that you didn't need to. I just felt like, for me, I'm a real advocate for being specific about what's going on with kids. Like people talk about separation anxiety, the terrible twos. I've got really strong feelings born of experience about what's actually going on at those points in a child's development. And I don't think we help ourselves or the kids when they just get labelled as part of a thing. And I picked up on your you saying, well, I don't really want to call it a thing. I want to share it, but I don't want to call it a thing. And that's where I tuned into what you were saying, and why I wanted to share this was, good on you for not calling it a thing. You're observing your daughter's response to something, and you intuitively know that when there's connection, she's fine, and when there's not, she's not interested.
Yeah.
You know, as a mum, I think you really just need to trust your own observation and experience.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you for that. I wasn't sure how to describe it without describing it.
Language.
You just said it all. How did that sound to you, Mel? What all of that just then was that okay? Like,
Yeah.
As person listening.
Yeah, definitely. And as being the person that's the nanny, the caregiver that comes into the space, I often hear mothers saying, and sometimes there's tears as well.
With the mums. Yeah.
That, you know, it's hard for, like, it's a process for them of letting go, and a process for them of seeing that their child being ready to engage a little bit more with the world and have a little bit of independence and take a little, even if it's a little bit of a half of a step away, so that they can find out who they are with that little bit of space and feel safe enough with someone else to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful when like you said, Emily, when you observe her having that space where she experiences that connection so that she feels safe enough to do that. It is beautiful to witness that.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember a couple of the first times, Mel, that you came in and really connected with her, like you really got down to her level. And I could tell that approach to building that connection, like she felt safe with that, and she went off with you. And I was standing there observing. I was like, she never does this with anybody. But I think it's just that you were holding that space and you got down onto her level, and you understood. You know, you have a great understanding of kids, so and you're able to build that connection. And she was talking to you and playing, and obviously felt safe. So yeah, I had that image in my mind too.
That's beautiful, Emily. It's like the mother recognizing, like you've got your own relationship, but the mother recognizing when there is connection and the difference it makes.
Mm.
And part of what I love about what you've set up, Mel, is that you're creating community for parents that are exploring all sorts of things, you know, whether it might be a philosophy they've adopted or a practice that they're wanting to try out, but they're all saying, look, there's got to be a better way.
Mm.
And it's really important to have these conversations so that people can feel like they're heard, that they can air their views, that they're being listened to and cared about and taken seriously, and that they're not isolated. Because if you're going through that kind of thing, like what Emily was sharing, if you're going through that as a parent and there is no one else to talk to you about, and it's a sort of a semi-observed, sort of a hunch, doesn't fit with anyone around you, no one in the family does it that way, or no one in your network does it that way, it can be a really lonely place to be.
Yeah.
You know, really challenging place to be.
And that's when you can question yourself
Mm.
and lose that inner connection with your intuition of what feels right.
Yeah, little girl, I saw this little girl that I know this week who has started kinder. Like, this is such a telling statement. And I asked her about kinder and she said, oh, it was okay. And I said, she asked her if she liked the teachers. And she just went, nah. Just, it was straight nut. And I said, oh, why don't you like your teachers? And she just looked me in the eyes and she said, because they pretend to be nice. And they're not really.
Which isn't necessarily, it's just that that's how we learn to survive in society. We put the mask on and out we go, and we hide what's really going on under the surface, which are what children actually feel. They feel what's going on under the surface.
Yeah, and I wasn't in judgment of these particular teachers. I just thought she can see and she knows what's going on, and she knows with me she can just say, she'll just say it how it is. Mm-hmm. And, of course, I had more of a conversation with her, but I thought, yeah, that's how it is. She's seeing through it. They're pretending to be nice.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lack of authenticity, and Carl's picking up on it.
Yeah. That's so funny. Kids are so funny sometimes.
Oh, they're hilarious.
It's what they do. They call exactly what's in the space and in the field.
Yeah.
Which can be challenging because it's challenging, because it even if we're not, because we're not, I mean, we're all on that journey of having deeper self-responsibility and deeper connection with ourselves and deeper awareness, self-awareness. But there's still blind spots, and they constantly get called out by children, don't they? So I feel like I actually met some beautiful friends, had a baby recently, and I went and met the new baby on the weekend. And the father said, he was telling me, so the baby's 2 months old now at this point, and he said, you know, I've read that the fastest path to self-development is to become a coach, because, you know, your clients mirror the things that you're needing to work on and mirrored back to you. So it's the fastest path to self-development. And he said, since he had the baby, I'm finding this is actually the fastest path.
So beautiful that he can say it, see it, say it. It's true. It's true. Like, you know, they're here.
I'm impressed that he got that in 2 months. That's awesome.
Emily, can I just ask you something? Like, what are you doing for your daughter? What have you decided to do, given she's chosen not for herself not to go to kinder, and you've seen why and you're understanding it, you've given her that space? Mm-hmm. Where has that left you? Like, what are you comfortable with that, or are you seeking something else, or I'm just really curious.
Yeah, I actually foresaw this happening before I enrolled her into kinder, but she was so determined that she was going to kinder. I was like, all right, I'll enroll you. You can see what it's like. And if it doesn't work out, at least she'll learn from that. So we did that. I think she learnt from that process. And then I was like, okay, we'll just do some homeschooling, kinder homeschooling. And she's only 4. To me, it's not a big deal. It was more just following her lead at the time and giving her some sort of autonomy to make that choice for herself, and then being able to learn from that. We talked a little bit about it and decided that she preferred to see her friends that she's already got, like one-on-one, because she's already got that connection with them. And she asked to start kinder gym, so we've started that. And this is another, because there's 2 different teachers at kinder gym as well. And I noticed the first session we went to, she was so into it. She was joining in to the group activities, which she usually doesn't do. Well, she hasn't in the past when we've been there. And then with the other teacher, she wasn't as enthusiastic. And then she started to say that she didn't want to go back to kinder gym. And I was like, what's going on here? So we had another conversation. And I said to her, do you just want to go to the classes with this teacher? And she said yes. So that's where we're at the moment. Going to the classes with the teacher that she felt that connection with. And then just seeing her other friends one-on-one and just following her lead with everything else, really.
Yeah, it sounds to me because I think when you're having conversations, it's really good to have specific examples. I've got a 23-year-old daughter now, so my current personal parenting examples are memories from the past. Like my current examples are I've got a young adult in my life, and we've got a really good relationship, and we've worked to create that together. But I think what you're saying, like what I'm hearing and what I want to reflect back, is that you're noticing that she's letting you know, and she's choosing to be in situations where there's connection. She wants to be with her friends where she's got a connection. She wants to be with the teacher where she feels a connection. And that's the essence of what the work I did for years, and the message I tried to take out to the community was that is what our kids need primary, and especially in their early years, because they are I don't know if you've read anything about epigenetics, but they are literally downloading every single action, every spoken word, every single thing going on in their environment in the first 7 years of their life. And that becomes their subconscious blueprint for the rest of their life. So those early years, like one of the things that I used to do in the work that I was doing, that particular work, was I was aware that a lot of those families were giving me their children, and those children were going to have their first imprint of a lot of experiences with me. So I was the agent of imprint sort of thing. And I would be in that awareness, thinking, okay, allowing things to happen as they were happening, but really just wanting to find the most respectful or the most kind or the most caring or the most honest way to deal with whatever came up for any child, going, right, this is their first imprint and it's happening with me. I'm setting them up. I'm setting them up. Like, simple example would be children when they fall over. Developing that capacity to observe and notice whether a child actually needs to be encouraged to stand up, needs a hand to stand up, whether they're actually really hurt themselves and they need to be picked up and tended to, but not jumping over the child and mollycoddling them and treating them like there's something wrong with them because they've fallen over, allowing yourself to have the space to notice what's an appropriate response in any experience. Like if you've got a child who's tumbled and you look at them and go, big tumble, do you reckon you can get yourself up? And the child hears that, it's empowering. Yeah, did really well. Can you dust yourself off? Can you get that off your knees? Do you think your hands need a wash? Like really empowering the child to take care of themselves.
Mm.
When a child who's fallen and really hurt themselves and is in shock or has been traumatized, they need to be scooped up and feel the presence of someone there who's caring about the fact that they've hurt themselves. So, you know, so it's like knowing,
following their cues.
yeah, and just knowing, well, if that's the first big fall they've had away from mum and dad, they're going to be learning from me that the world is a place where they'll be cared about or not. Or if this child's tumbled and they're capable of taking care of themselves, they're going to be learning from me that they can be empowered, or they're going to be, you know, treated like they're incapable. And then the child will suddenly be looking for help that they don't need.
Mm.
You know, if that sort of thing.
And giving their power away.
Yeah. I love that concept of you being that first imprint. I feel like that makes your job seem like it's so much responsibility. And it would have been such a blessing for those kids and those parents to have someone looking after their child who's so conscious of that and making those, you know, those choices, those reactions so consciously, and how you're going to impact their child.
Oh, thanks, Emily. I always felt like it was such a privilege, like to have people really trust you with their children. It's just such an honour, and such a privilege. And to be working with, I had this particular experience. I had 5 children at a time, so that we were learning about belonging in community and how to function as a tribe. So the joy, like I just felt so enriched. I was so given to. People used to say, "Oh, you must be so exhausted." You know, I mean, I come and go, no. I feel so filled up. I feel like I could sit around and laugh for the afternoon at half the things that have happened. You know, spontaneous moments of pure genius, just the way children would figure things out, or questions they'd ask, or games they'd create, or how they would create their reality, and the space that they're in, where they're, you know, they're in their imaginal world all the time. It's like people think, oh, they're making stuff up, but I thought, no, they're actually in an experience, and they're being an expression of an experience when they're, you know, I've got about 50 things going through my mind thinking, oh, which one of those little examples could I pull out, you know, to just, like, I just suddenly remember these 3 children down by the river, and one day, and these tiny little flies that used to come in a swarm at the children's farm sometimes, but it was like a straight, like not a hovering thing. They'd be hovering, but straight up and down, like just a sheet of them. And this little hover of flies came between these 3 children, and I was observing them, and all at once the 3 of them noticed what was in front of them, and one little girl goes, "Ah, fairies," and just standing there looking at fairies. And the little boy next to her goes, "No, it's not, it's snow." And the 3rd little child just stood there looking at both of them and looking at what was happening, trying to work out what was happening. And the first 2, the fairy and the snow child, the boy that it was a little girl that saw fairies, a little boy that thought it was snow, or the little boy that thought it was snow said, "Look, you can push your hand through it." So he was doing all these things that were his way of proving to her that they were standing there looking at snow. And she was looking at him a bit. She said, "But no, they're got little wings. It's fairies, fairies." And this conversation went on for ages, where they were just being in their own actual experience and trying to share it with each other. And the 3rd child just stood there watching, trying to figure out, well, what am I actually looking at? Is it fairies, is it snow, or is it something else? And they just stayed in that space. And I just in that moment, I always allow, like I would never come in and go, no, they're little flies and they come in these, you know, just allow the children the experience. And often in that experience, they suddenly morph into another aspect of the game, and it doesn't even matter whether it was flies or not.
Mm.
You know, it's just allowing them to have their actual experience.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really important, you know, part of what we're talking about. And, you know, if you're working with young kids and seeing that sort of thing go on for hours of a day, how could you not go home feeling like, you know, so well nourished and so filled up?
Yeah, and inspired. That's
Yeah.
how I feel. Almost like they remind us how to live
Yeah.
through us being able to hold that space and just purely observe and witness them.
Yeah, and just be present for when there's actually a genuine need.
Mm. Yeah.
You know, just when they're genuinely needing something, not be imposing because we think they need something, but being able to just observe and, okay, be the hand that's needed, or the ear, or the hug, or the whatever it is that's needed in a moment, being able to just be in that kind of a space. And I think, you know, the privilege of doing that work was also deepening conversations with parents, and then getting to the point where I just said, look, I'm only interested in working with families who want to have a deeper conversation. Like at first I was just open to anyone that came my way, but then I found that if I always would say to parents, if something's going on for your child, if I notice something that seems like they're not really being themselves for some reason, I'll tell you on the day that I notice it happen. I'm never going to see something and say, oh, for the last 3 months or the last 4 weeks. And sometimes it would just be a comment. I'd say, look, I noticed this happen. It hasn't been going on before. I'm just wondering, you know, maybe they're tired, maybe this, maybe that. But it would always just mark something that was a bit out of kilter for the child, and it would create the space if it presenting itself, like if they were withdrawing or, you know, getting pushy or starting to dominate other kids, or all the little things that go on in human relationship, because that's all it is little people learning how to relate to each other. If I bring it up, it then would give me a platform to talk to parents. But I got to the point where I knew that I could only do it if parents coming to be part of the experience were open to that sort of conversation, open to self-reflection, open, because when they weren't, I would find myself in a situation where I'd go, there's something happening for this child and I can't have the conversation where it needs to be had. So I can't support the child. I can't help them through this any more than I'm trying, you know. So, and then, you know, that led me to, I did support work. I'd work with parents in groups, and sometimes they'd come to see me as well, and I'd open a space where we could actually explore. You know, sometimes parents would go, oh yeah, that's actually been going on at home, and and we're not sure what to do about it, or yeah, I've noticed that and I've been wondering, or actually we're really concerned about it, or, you know. So, and then to just hold space where the parents can come and unravel a bit and connect with what's going on that might mean that the child holds himself back, or, you know, 50, any one of the many expressions of we see in children when they're just not being themselves.
Yeah, and that's something actually I encourage with the families and nannies who join the network, is to build that time and space into their time together.
So how do they each negotiate how they're going to do that themselves?
Yes, because sometimes it depends on the situation. If the family is in a situation where one of them works from home and there's not that morning rush for both parents to get out the door, then in some situations that will happen naturally throughout the day. There's an opportunity for the nanny and the mother or the father, whoever's home, to connect and have that conversation. Or otherwise they might need to build in a 15-minute, 20-minute, however long is needed, block of time that is purely dedicated to connecting.
Yeah.
And discussing, how the day has unfolded, how the week has unfolded, and sharing, what you just talked about, what they've both experienced with the child or the children, and how each of them navigate it. And it feels like when we put our heads together, that's when the child benefits the most, is when we're connected as their parents and caregivers, and actually checking in and having those conversations about what's going on is really important.
Oh, so important. It's so good to hear, Mel, what you're saying.
Yeah, and I feel something I wanted to, this is a little bit slightly off topic, but it's something that popped up earlier that I wanted to mention, so I might mention it now, coming back to connection again. What I've noticed in my work with children is it feels like they're constantly, continually, and I'm sure it's next level when it's your own children, because this is just what I experience as a nanny with my niece and nephew and the children that I care for, is that they're continually calling us into deeper connection with ourselves through their actions and their behaviour.
Yeah. They're like little be present, be present, be present.
Yes. They're continually calling us into, so if we're able to keep coming back to ourselves in whatever's going on, then that helps us to find our way through for us and for them.
Yeah, totally. It's I think that example, you know, where you hear a child go, I want to drink, 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 and someone turn around and say, stop it. And then you think, no, how come you weren't listening the first time they said it? You know, it might have been, okay, I'll get you a drink, I just need to finish this, or can you come and ask me for any response, but the non-response, and children aren't tired of life. You know, they're so fresh and new, they've got plenty of energy for saying something 50 times if they need to, and getting really loud and bouncing off the walls and doing all sorts of things, you know, and it's everything you're saying, just be present, just be present and go, I need to finish putting the shoes on here before I can get the drink, I'll be with you in a sec. And they're not going to say it a second or third time.
Yeah, because you've made connection.
Yeah. I think we've also got to be really forgiving of ourselves and compassionate, because it's really, especially if you have a challenging day, you can get to the end of the day and just feel like you've done nothing right. And there's nothing good about how you're operating and functioning within your family or with the children you're with or whatever. And sometimes you've just got to go, well, I really want to congratulate myself on getting to the end of a really bad day, sort of thing. And we'll just start tomorrow, and tomorrow's a fresh day. Days where we sometimes can't actually figure out what it is that's going on for us enough to be present, it's like having enough compassion to go, well, I've got so much on my mind, I'm not going to be able to be as present as I need to be. How do I do the day in the face of that? How do I create a day? You know, sometimes you can be with a child and it's only when you're with them that you feel, oh, actually, I've got too much happening. There's too much going on for me emotionally, and it's not appropriate to be in all of that here. But you can still create a day that's good, and a day where they enjoy themselves, and a day where they can have some fun, and to forgive ourselves.
And even it's an opportunity. Sorry.
And to forgive ourselves for being human.
Yeah, and it's a great opportunity for the children to see us being human.
Yeah.
And especially if we're able to take the opportunity to express how we're feeling, we're also modelling having that emotional intelligence and awareness. You know, today I'm feeling a little bit whatever it is.
Yeah.
Sad, frustrated. It's a great opportunity, actually.
It is. I just really appreciate your overview and reflection, Mel, and I really love that you were here, Emily, because your examples are so immediate and they're so personal. And I feel like sharing those sorts of things often can just be the way that a door will open for someone else. You know, and I found in my own experience a groups of people working with kids that come together and talk this way creates greater possibility for space to be held in this way for children.
And that's what it's all about. For me, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, very much.
So thank you for both of you for being here and being so present and available and being open to having this conversation, taking the deep dive